Day one of training camp is in the books. We break down all the things you need to know next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube, and also rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. What's going on, everybody? Like we said, first day of training camp is in the books. So lots of stuff to go through. It was closed to the public, so we are only kind of taking information from some of the Bears media members and other things like that. But on Thursday, I feel like whenever fans are there, we get a lot more news. So I'm excited for that. But let's get into it. So the first topic I want to talk about is right after everything was going on, Tarvarius Moore ends up getting cut right at the end. And one of the reasons why I want to bring this up is just because the moral of the story about what's going on at camp is, and I don't know if this guy messed up or anything like that, but you just hear this whole, we're not going to be tolerating certain things, certain behaviors, and then you just see someone immediately get cut. And so you're kind of like, wait a second, what did he do? So Tarvarius Moore ends up getting cut, who was actually a pretty good depth piece with safeties. So now we kind of question, hey, are there some of these undrafted rookies that might be, kind of turn your head? Maybe someone like that is kind of catching some of the attention. The other piece too is that this does actually open up a spot so that if the Bears want to add another player, they could potentially add another player, maybe defensive end, or maybe it's another undrafted player that we don't really know, and then we totally forget that that we had this opportunity to sign someone. Like I've said before, I expect the Bears to still try and sign and add another defensive end just because this position group is so weak, and you do need to create some competition out there. So Moore ends up getting cut, but let's actually talk about what was going on. And so the new segment, we always did stock up, stock down. And I don't really like that, right? Because stock up insists that, hey, they're getting better and better and better. But really, we're going to call this hype train and reality check, because stock down was always kind of like, hey, they're not actually bad, right? We just have to report. It's almost like a little reality check of what was going on during the practice. Yet again, none of this means that someone's going to be unbelievable or not. But let's start out with the hype train. First person on the hype train is none other than J.P. Richardson, the undrafted rookie free agent out of TCU. Now, TCU had a million different wide receivers come out this year that seemingly were drafted, and J.P. Richardson was kind of the odd man out, undrafted. And today, the big news was that he made a phenomenal one-handed catch thrown by Tyson Bagent, who, believe it or not, Tyson Bagent throwing with the 3s today rather than the 2s. So J.P. Richardson, though, wheeling in a catch with one hand. And we talked a little bit about J.P. Richardson as someone to kind of look out for, as kind of one of the old Tanner Gentrys, right? The people that kind of break out, the Aroma Shadoos, the wide receiver that kind of turns people's heads. It seems like it's going to be J.P. Richardson this year, and he's already started the hype train off on a good note. But someone who's actually going to be on the team that we know for a fact, Mr. Tummaine Edmonds had a very good day today. And at first play of scrimmage ends up intercepts the ball from Caleb Williams. And here's the big thing too. Tummaine Edmonds, there's a lot of talk about the potential hype in this whole Dennis Allen system, especially since Dennis Allen had, his linebackers have usually kind of turned it up, like Demario Davis played very, very well inside of his system. So now you have Tummaine Edmonds. Maybe he can be someone that can turn it on like Demario Davis. Demario Davis was not great, and then he comes over to Dennis Allen and kind of new life with Dennis Allen, kind of fingers crossed with Tummaine Edmonds. But yet again, this is why it's the hype train segment. But some other things Dennis Allen said about Tummaine Edmonds. He said, I'm anticipating him being an exceptional playmaker for us. He's got size, he's got range, he's got speed. A lot of things we're going to look for him in terms of look, it's hard to throw over him. He's got length in the middle of the field. I'm excited to see what he can do. That was a good start, but we have a long way to go. Also, another piece. So that's what Dennis Allen said about Tummaine Edmonds. And another piece I want to throw out there about Tummaine Edmonds. He is someone that was playing a lot of Mike linebacker, that middle linebacker last season. And what Dennis Allen has talked about is that he wants Tummaine Edmonds to play both weak side and Mike linebacker. He said in case if someone gets injured, you want someone that can kind of play both spots. So interesting that you kind of have him going both spots. Is that something that they haven't done in the past? So that is the hype train. Now it's time to get into the reality check. So we're going to kind of crush the vibe, even though out there during practice, Caleb Williams was feeling pretty good. For those out on YouTube, you can kind of see him just kind of vibing out there. But I wanted to just kind of lighten the mood before we get into the reality check, because the reality check segment, the number one thing was that the offense just struggled. It, flat out. It seems like this was a day that the defense won, and that means that the entire season is lost, right? No, it doesn't. And I think that's the biggest thing. This is the first practice. You should not expect it to go great. A lot of people were saying, listen, this just wasn't great. Mark Carman, I have a quote from him, just kind of mentioning how basically when Caleb Williams rolled out, Kmet was open. He ends up not going for it and just basically goes out of bounds. And this is stuff that you expect them to make it, even though it's still early on. This is stuff that they need to correct. And the big thing that everybody kind of heard out there was that Ben Johnson yelled at the offense. And the big reason, kind of figuring out why, it was just that the offense consistently was not lining up properly. And another thing to mention too, this wasn't 11 on 11. There was not an offensive line that Caleb Williams has to kind of call protections for. This is 7 on 7. This is, you go out there, you look at the players just have to line up properly. You just have to throw at the right spot, right? So very, very simple. Like people say, the ball should not hit the ground in 7 on 7 because you don't have a pass rush. And this is something that just flat out, they weren't going out there. But the thing that I love, right, the silver lining in all of this, because yet again, this is reality check, not doom and gloom with everything. The benefit is that this is what the Bears said that they were going to do with this offense, that Ben Johnson was going to go out there and kind of hold everyone to a specific standard. And we are seeing that. And we're seeing that, like, this is where we expect you to be. And Cole Kmet was asked about it, and Cole Kmet said, yeah, that's kind of what we expect with Ben Johnson. He's going to hold us accountable, and they're getting what they wanted. They wanted to be held accountable, and that is what Ben Johnson is doing. Even though that the offense struggled, it is nice to see that they're at least being held accountable for what is actually going on. So personally, yeah, you want to see them doing better, but hey, I like that we're at least kind of holding the players accountable and making sure that this offense looks like an actual championship and good offense, because yeah, we just had some really bad coaching before. So hopefully that starts turning up. Hopefully it starts playing a little bit better. So that's the overall goal with this offense. Let's hopefully start turning things up. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of other pieces when it comes down to this offense. But let's actually, besides the left tackle, we'll talk a little bit about the left tackle next. So let's flip over. Next little reality check piece that I want to talk about is the injuries. In particular, we got to talk about Luther Burden. Luther Burden was not out there today, wide receiver out of Missouri. And this is the person that kind of had a lot of videos out there on Instagram of him riding the bike. He went full-blown social media. And the thing that I think what is leaving a bad taste in all of our mouths is what he was showing on social media. He was showing himself working out, putting in that extra effort, and doing all these extra things. And then he wasn't out there today. No one knew where he was. We didn't even see him out there. And I think that's something that, can we get an explanation? I'd love it if Luther Burden was like, hey, I was just making sure my hamstring was okay. And we talked about this with Luther Burden when he missed all of OTAs. And people were talking, like the medical experts out there on Twitter, were talking about how hamstrings, he should be ready. He should be ready unless it's more serious. So hopefully it's not serious. Hopefully it isn't, but it's not a good sign that he's not out there. And also, what are you kind of waiting for? The other piece too, Zay Frazier wasn't out there as well. No one really talking about that, the cornerback that we drafted out of UTSA. But really, it's just a bummer. that Luther Burden's not out there. And we just want an explanation. You see the social media stuff, you expect him out there, and it just kind of comes off a little fake when he's not out there, right? It just seems like, okay, where are you? Why can't we see you right now? So us Bears fans, we just want to see some players out there. And I really want to see Luther Burden because he's just a phenomenal athlete. So that's why I really want to see him. And he can be a great weapon inside of this Bears offense. So let's go over and let's start talking a little bit of, actually, we'll continue talking a little bit more about some of the injuries. For those on YouTube, you can kind of see some little drills that were going out there. But some other pieces about injuries. We saw Colston Loveland limited today, and CHGO's Adam Hogue said that, hey, he kind of liked the way that Colston Loveland looked out there. Said he kind of looked good with some of the routes, and also kind of mentioned a little bit about his weight, not specifically different, kind of not super specific, but it at least seems like, hey, he's on the right track. And there's also videos out there. I should have actually pulled some of those, but there's some videos out there too with Colston Loveland, with them actually blocking. So nice to see that as well. Colston Loveland at least making some blocks out there, but yet again, it's not full pads or anything like that, but at least participating in the drills. Other pieces too, with Jalen Johnson not out there, Nashawn Wright actually started at cornerback opposite Tyreek Stevenson. So some people, why not Terrell Smith? Well, I think that the big thing is Terrell Smith versus Tyreek Stevenson. It's always kind of been those guys. So Nashawn Wright, someone that we've also talked about too, someone that Al Harris knows can kind of play that opposite side of Jalen Johnson as well. And then also Braxton Jones was back out there. So let's talk about this left tackle position, because this is what everyone wants to know. Left tackle, Ozzy was out there with the ones. And what I was hearing, right, Pat the Designer from ESPN 1000 and the Windy City Breeze, both talked about how he felt that Ozzy looked solid, right? Yet again, no pads on, so you got to take this all with a grain of salt. But really, he looked solid, is what people were saying. It's just always been that way. Where I think the thing that Ben Johnson probably really likes about Ozzy is he just does the job, right? He just goes out there, he does the job. That was what we kind of put on the scouting report coming out of Boston College. There's nothing flashy about his game. He just goes out there, he just does his thing. And that's something that you got to love out of a left tackle, especially since Ben Johnson is such a stickler. Do your freaking job. Go out there and do what we're telling you to do. So that's, yet again, good thing for Ozzy. But I still don't he's not all of a sudden now going to be the one, right? Look, tomorrow, is Karan going to be getting the snaps? Because Karan was out there with the twos, Ozzy with the first, but then Braxton also back, but in a limited capacity. So he wasn't out there with the full teams, but at least limited capacity for Braxton Jones. So who's going to be with the ones tomorrow? I'll make sure to kind of have that so that we know exactly who's out there, but definitely a competition for us to continue to watch out for. I still feel like Ozzy's got a little leg up on it. We do have to see the severity of Braxton's injury. How is he looking after the injury? But Braxton Jones, first snap, literally false starts. So we'll see what ends up happening with that overall. But also another couple little things about the offense that I just have out here. Kevin Fishbane was just kind of writing about how Caleb Williams really struggled with timing, throwing some incompletions. There were some drop passes. Pat the Designer flat out just said, not a great day for the offense. But like we said, visibly frustrated Ben Johnson today, literally cut the team drills for the ones and then said, all right, second team, Case Keenum, you and the twos, get in there. Just poor execution overall. Other thing too, offensive players had some extra runnings as well. But yeah, really it's just the standard that Ben's setting. We said this last episode, just the whole 70% plus completion percentage Ben is expecting of Caleb Williams, which yet again, that's Ben Johnson has done that in his system, right? He needs a quarterback that can do that. And that's exactly what he's doing. Hey, this is what I know is going to work, and we have to play up to that standard. And what I love is that he's setting that, because a lot of the questions was, hey, we know that Dan Campbell was kind of the disciplinary person. He was the person that was, he was the parent. He was the person that was in charge. And we saw Shane Waldron last year. someone who wasn't a bad offensive coordinator, come in and look awful. Why? Because he was in charge and he did not have the capacity to be a leader and to be the person in charge of that offense. Ben Johnson is saying, hey, I'm not Shane Waldron. I'm a better play caller. I can design these things better. And also, I'm not going to let people walk all over me like what Shane Waldron allowed that, because Pete Carroll was the Dan Quinn, or not Dan Quinn, Dan Campbell, same type of thing, disciplinary person. So that's it overall, but let's go down to the defense and let's just kind of round this out with how the defense looked. And really the defense looked sharp. And, some little quote that I have here with Dennis Allen. He also had some interviews afterwards, and he talked about having to pay the toll. He said it's all part of building the culture of what type of defense we're going to be. You have to pay the toll. You have to pay the price. It's a privilege to be on this defense. We've been doing that on every defense that I've been associated with since 2009. And it's a way to mentally train players to be tough and push through adversity. And part of this too was, Courtney Cronin talked about this a lot, saying that Dennis Allen was putting them through up downs. So putting them through just exhaustion to make sure that this defense plays tired. Because for anyone that has played any sort of sport out there, when you're tired, you think differently. Just this weekend, or, just last weekend, I was playing, some baseball. And, when I was tired, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be running for that. Maybe I shouldn't be as quick with some of these other pieces. That's exactly what they're trying to look for. They want people, while they're tired, to not take the shortcuts with that. But really, overall, some stuff that I was just reading from Kevin Fishbane, just talking about how the defense looks sharper, just very, very, just overall sharpness, good aggressive play out there. Obviously, the interceptions. Jaquan Brisker got his fingertips on a ball, so nice to see Jaquan out there making some plays, because I know Brisker, I love Brisker, and I just hope that he has a phenomenal season. So that is the summary from day one. We have a lot more stuff coming out with the training camp, so make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're out there on YouTube, or just simply download the podcast everywhere you get your podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports, and if you're out there on YouTube, the link should be down below to instantly just add that to your podcast rotation. You'll get all the updates that you need for Bears training camp. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and that she's a